so let's rewind time. The city did its mosquito outlook in April. There was a lot of talk of drought. So what's the situation now that we've seen all this rain?
So yeah, earlier in the spring, of course, we had very little in terms of mosquito. We had very little snow melt, basically almost nothing for April and most of May. Now that we've gotten a lot of rain, we are seeing the accumulation of the precipitation in those low-lying areas, and that's caused mosquito hatching. And we are seeing pretty extensive larval development throughout the Edmonton area. So our crews are out treating them, where they're finding them in those low-lying areas, especially in roadside ditch habitats, ravines, in parks, all those sorts of things within the city. But yeah, we are actually seeing development of mosquitoes at this point.
How are crews treating the different areas?
So we use what's called a larvicide. We target the aquatic larval stage of the mosquitoes, and it's a bacterial product that's developed from ubiquitous soil bacteria. So it's actually a biological control, and that's put into the water, and the mosquitoes actually eat these proteins. And that kills off the mosquitoes, but it's non-toxic to pretty much everything else that's in the water, except for a few related families of aquatic fly larvae, including things like black flies. Generally has a much lower impact on other organisms.
Yeah. So a few years ago, if I remember correctly, the city actually eliminated its aerial spraying. Right? That's correct, right?
Yeah, so we used to have a helicopter program. So helicopters would deliver the same bacterial product to a number of the low-lying areas that are around the city, rural and agricultural regions around the city of Edmonton, where there are pretty significant mosquito development sites. And so, yeah, that program was eliminated, but our ground and ditch programs continue with robust treatment in those areas. And the roadside ditch habitats in particular are probably the most productive sites for mosquito development. And so it kind of gives us more bang for our buck hitting those roadside ditch habitats than the helicopter program. So our reduction in the mosquitoes developing in the Edmonton area, it's not as effective as it was when there were the helicopters, of course, but it's still pretty effective at reducing the amount of mosquitoes that are developing and moving into the city.
I remember last year you folks were talking about different kind of breeds of mosquitoes and things like that. Is it still too early to see what we're going to see this year when it comes to like different species and things like that, or different kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Different types of mosquitoes?
So yeah, we actually have about 30 different species of mosquito in the Edmonton area, and each mosquito has its own particular habitats that it likes to go into, its own ecology, its own preferred hosts. So some of them actually prefer going after birds. And so Culex pipiens is another thing that we're monitoring. It's not a major target of our current control program, but we are developing additional strategies as to what we can do about Culex pipiens, in particular because they can be quite aggressive biters, and they're also the primary vector of West Nile virus in North America.
Well, quickly, Mike, I also want to talk about something other than mosquitoes too. What other insects or what others is the city monitoring right now?
We do see development of a lot of other species that kind of go in cycles. And so when they're threatening the integrity of the urban forest, we may do control measures on those. Others, we don't necessarily do as much control on, but we keep track of what's happening in terms of their population, largely because we get more complaints about them. So there are a lot of those species that depend more on hot, dry conditions. And so the last several years, we've had increases in a number of those, including things like ants and yellow jackets. But we've also seen box elder bug, also called maple bugs, little red and black insects that largely feed on Manitoba maple trees. And they're relatively harmless. They don't do much damage to the trees themselves, but they tend to, in the fall especially, they'll gather on the south sides of buildings in large numbers, sunning themselves to keep themselves warm, and that's when people start noticing them. And they also tend to overwinter in people's houses. So they'll find cracks and crevices and climb inside there and find an old disused cabinet or closet in the basement and hide out there for the winter. And so people end up finding them and freaking out about these things, thinking they're cockroaches or something hiding out in their house. But yeah, they're just hibernating there for the winter. They don't do any damage to the building itself. They don't get into food stuffs or anything like that. They're just trying to find a place to spend the winter.
Very interesting. I love this topic because it's something that always gets people talking. Thank you so much for the update, Mike. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.